everybody, welcome back. These are the tissue papers I did last week with my gel plate, and I just love them, and I love that I've got a whole new stash here, and I will use that through the rest of this book. Not sure if I'll use them today, but I just wanted to remind you that this is a new stash. You can see those squares there on the previous spread. That wasn't tissue paper, but I could do that effect with tissue paper. So I do like having the tissue papers on hand. This is my dog's pee mat, and I thought, you know what? This would be a great thing to cut up and use as page protectors. So why not? I'm all for finding products around the home to help me do my art journals. And this is working out just fabulously. So I'm going to do this from here on because I like a plastic sheet behind, but I like absorbency for the fluid paints that run over the edge. So let's go. It's mark making time. I've got some pencil crayons out. I've got a plain pencil. I've got a permanent black pen that I will possibly not use. And I've got my favorite Stabilo Woody black pencil. I like these because they are they go on like a pencil crayon, but they are very intense pigment in there. So when you color with them and then wet them, activate the paint with water, it's amazing how much paint is in there. I'm using my left hand with the pencil so that I keep this organic and I don't overdo anything and make perfect marks. I want it to be very intuitive and wonky. I have no idea how these will show up later at this point, but I'm using them as you see I do in many of my abstracts. Here we go with the Stabilo Woody. I just love it. It goes on so soft and easy. You can have so much fun with it, and you could leave it like this and that would be fine, but look what happens when you activate it with spray water. It's so much fun. I really enjoy watching paint, how it flows and moves away with the water. So I'm just, while it's wet, it even goes on darker once you apply it. You can see over a wet page already. So the more water I add and the harder I press that Stabilo Woody, the more pigment gets on that page. That's really fun watching that movement. Isn't that great? Oh, I love it. To tell you the truth, I'm going to do a little bit more mark making, but to tell you the truth, if I was to, from here on in, just paint a bright pale color in the background, I could call it a day and say, this is a fabulous spread, I love it. But you know me, I like to learn and grow, teach you to learn and grow, and I'm not going to finish this video this soon. It's way too much fun to just keep trying, learning, exploring, experimenting, playing with results. So this is just an underpainting right now. But I do love the energy. I love the balance. I love everything about this page. So now I'm pressing really hard over the damp page, and I'm trying to get layers now of this black mark making. And I'm dabbing away where I want to keep it subtle, and then I'm not dabbing where I want the dark to stay on the top surface. So I'm just playing around. I'm trying to show you how fun these pens are. So I'm going to create depths here. These ones I just did recently are going to stay in the foreground, and the ones that I dabbed away stay in the background. Now I'm already creating layers. So much fun. I love taking these when I travel in the winter because they're clean and easy to keep in a case. And then when you use them, they become paint. So it's the perfect artist travel companion. Look at that. So much pigment in that Stabilo Woody. And look at the flow. I like keeping it organic, and usually when I do this and let it dry, I just live with the results that happen. I try not to over-contrive, overwork it. I like what's happening there with those little circles, but who knows? This is full of water, and we're going to wait and see how it dries. You're going to see shortly that it dried completely differently. There's a lot of water there. that spreads over quite a bit of the spread. So that is all that area that's water is pooled, all that area is where that pigment will flow. So when it dries, it's going to seem a little different. I like those two spots, but we're going to watch what they do. See how they change once. Who would have thought that one there that would have dried like that? I had no clue it would dry like that. Absolutely no clue at all. And look how amazing that is. Looks like a great big flower petal. Now my mistake here is I forgot to spray a fixative over the page. You need to know with these Stabilo Woodies that they activate once you put anything wet over them. So this matte medium is wet, and if I press really lightly like there, I'm really barely touching the page with a lot of matte medium, and the purpose is to just put that matte medium across the black marking. Even though I've sped this up, I am pressing delicately, believe me, because as soon as you start pressing like there, it spreads that black around. And I'm going to dab some of that back. And then I'm going to put a very thick coating of the matte medium over that because it's such a dense area of pigment. And that looks really funny, but remember, this matte medium dries clear. I really should have sprayed a fixative over the page. That was my mistake. I was so excited to keep on going. Lesson for you people. Now I can press a little harder once that first coating of matte medium is there, but again, in those very dark areas, it is still activating if I press too hard. So then I got my finger out and just delicately dabbed, which was working out a bit better than the paintbrush. Some people will actually just let it spread and smear, but I'm trying to keep my art journal vibrant and bold in color, and I don't want a lot of dark, deep dark black smudges everywhere. That's for another time. So I'm pressing with the brush again over the fairly white areas of the paper, and then I'll be, as soon as I go over the really dense pigment areas like here, you can see I'm just twirling the brush around delicately over top and letting that paint matte medium cover it. Again, I'm almost not, even though I'm going fast speed, I hardly touch the paper because I didn't want to smear that pigment. So try that someday with just some scrap paper. Just play around with what pressures work and what those Stabilo Woodies do when you activate them with water. It's so much fun. I could actually do this entire spread with multicolored Stabilo Woodies and I would have success. I'm just dabbing away the edges because that matte medium being so thick, when you go over the page, when it dries, it becomes like a clear skin. So I really apologize now. In this next session, I obviously used my camera elsewhere, and when I put it back in place and started recording, there was a smudge on the camera, on the lens area. So I really apologize, but I'm going to keep on going rather than scrap the video because it's worth continuing. I've got an ink pad here. It's permanent ink, and it looks like gray on the outside, but it ends up being about 90% black. I'm testing it on a scrap paper first, and the reason why I don't want a full black one is because I want to have this script stamp stay in the background. So using this 90% black one, you can see that it's putting some nice detail across the spread, but it's shooting it into the background. The risk I run with all of this black, and you will see as we go through this video, the risk I ran was that it's going to get smudgy and dirty looking, and this beautiful art journal book that I've been working on so far is so full of wonderful, vibrant, energetic, bold colors. It doesn't have a lot of smeary black, and so I do have a bit of area coming up here session where everything gets a little bit, it's almost too much black. Again, if I would have just painted like a pale pink over this or a pale blue across the entire spread, I would have enjoyed how this looks, and I could have done that. But my video would have ended really, really quickly in 10 minutes, and I wouldn't have had much more to show you. So I'm going to show you, again, I always like to show you options. That was the first option. Just do something like that. Make sure it's sprayed and fixative and all that. Put a coating over it, then do a pale color and call it a day. That would have been lovely. But we're going further than that, people. We're going deep. We're experimenting, we're exploring, we're playing. You've got to remember it's just paper. And at any point, and I will do it later, at any point, if I don't like what's happening, I get the thick, heavy white paint out. I can paint over areas I don't want and start again. I'm using my delicate brush again with the long, soft bristles to I'm basically just coaxing this fluid paint around the page with the water below. I'm trying not to get brush strokes. I like things to be more flowy than that. This is so much fun. I'm in my zone. I'm not overthinking anything. I'm just playing. I'm just lost in the moment. That's what I love about this art journaling. It's so therapeutic. A lot of my pain is back, and so it's just a moment for me to get lost in a happy activity and not think about my day or anything I'm going through. That's why this is so therapeutic and so amazing for the soul. So I'm just, dabbing and keeping it wet, moving the paint around, trying to do a transition between the lemon yellow and the gold. Because I'm all about color movement and energy, and by mixing things up like this, spreading around, that's how you get the energy. Always dabbing that center of the book, because that's where the water wants to pool. And if I don't keep dabbing that while it gets in there, it could seep into the back pages. So I'm just playing with dabbing. I love the idea of putting a lot of water, moving it around, and then gently dabbing with the tissue so that I can make kind of a smudgy, cloudy kind of effect. If I was just take a wipe it away, I'd have really strong lines as a transition, and I don't want that. I want really gentle transitions between colors. So here goes the magenta. It's such a strong pigmented color out of the bottle that I always, quite often now, I add it in a little dish with water to dilute it because it's just so heavy. I can always add layers, more and more of it later on, but I like to start these first stages, as you can see, with softer colors in all three colors. I'm already noticing how dirty this is getting, and I didn't like that. I loved the marks that I had, but as soon as I put these colors over top, it's not smudging. That's not what's happening, because those colors were fixed below, but it's just that there's so much black there that these colors are getting smudgy, and I really don't want that dirty look. I hope you like and subscribe to these videos. I do them for you, and the more feedback I get and the more likes and subscribes I get, especially the likes, and in fact the longer that you view these, the better it is for my channel. And I'm not doing this channel to get millions of views. That's not the point for me. I'm not doing it to get a bunch of sponsorship and earn a ton of money off of it either. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for me and for my soul. I'm paying it forward, but it really does help if I can reach more people. So please like. Yeah, the more I do this and the more I dab away, it doesn't help the fact that it's still very dirty in those two center spots on the left and right spread. So I know I'm going to have to deal with that, but until then I'm just kind of I'm committed to this for now, just to see where I can go. So you can see from left to middle to right, I'm making a bit of a flow pattern. I like that energy. And I'm trying to dab away right where the black is to see if it helps, but no doubt about it, because this is the color, that would be okay if I had deeper colors, but because I want to keep bright yellow, pink, and gold, it's just getting dirty. So I thought I'll bring out a tube that I did with the same magenta mixed with a fluid white to make a brighter pink, and I'm trying to put that on top to see if it'll help. And it's just smudging it around. I'm not happy with that. It just looks like a smudgy, dirty mess. It's bad enough that the camera's fuzzy. That makes this look worse. Believe me, it didn't look quite this bad when it was in focus, but still, it gives me an idea that this isn't what I want. I loved that black flow and energy at the beginning, but it's just turning into something I don't want. So I'm going to spray that back with water. to help kind of disperse that pale pink and let it flow across the page. It gets very milky and kind of flows and it becomes a bit of a milky veil, if you will, over top the page. But yeah, I'm not happy with this. It's just a big smudgy mess. But it's just paper, and I can fix it. There's no way I would go at this point and say, I don't like it, I'm going to cut it out of the book. I'm committed to this book intact, and I'm committed to showing you that even if you have things that don't work out right, there are ways to fix it. That's the biggest part about evolving in your painting skills, is learning what you can do. So I've got a wet wipe here full of rubbing alcohol on it, and I'm trying to dab away and swipe away. It's not going to swipe away that black because I had so much matte medium over top of that. So that's as it is. I'm actually liking this right now. I could stop right now and I don't really mind this page. As much as I didn't like it at the time, now that I'm doing the voiceover, I don't mind it, but let's see where we can go. Now, I thought I might bring blue as an accent color, and therefore I just did it delicately in 3 spots. But that might change. And it is a good complement to these. And if I was going to keep this as a pale, delicate looking page, then this would be fine as is. That would work. But it doesn't have the impact I like to go for. I like bold. I like stronger color. And as you've seen in most of my videos, I start light, and then at this point, this is kind of not quite the mid stage, but at this point I start deepening the colors, the values of the colors. I still haven't dealt with the black issue, but I will. I'm thinking, maybe if as I go deeper and deeper, that it'll blend with the black a bit better, not be so smudgy looking. So I'm committed to seeing this through. And by all means, as you watch me work on this, when you get to points where you think, oh, I really like that, I would leave it as it is, and this is what I would do to it next, that's a great sign, because that means you're learning and you're getting your own opinion on what you could do at this point. You might want to take stamps out, put stickers on there. You could do painting flowers and different things on the side and attach them now. I mean, at that point, if you've got ideas at this point that you would do instead of me, that's a terrific sign. I'm pleased about that. Still wondering about the flow here. The black lines definitely make a left to middle to right flow. That doesn't change throughout this whole spread. I love how the more I put that Indian yellow down and the stronger the depth of it is, the more vibrant the page just becomes alive. I just love these colors. And I'll say it again, I might down the road do another journal book where I do soft pastel colors and keep things pretty and delicate and light. But that's not what I'm about usually. I'm about bold. So if that's your style, using lighter colors, I applaud that, because I'm here to teach you techniques, not necessarily color. So I've got these black areas, and I'm trying to decide what to do about them. So I've got a tube of fluid white acrylic, and I'm taking a soft, small paintbrush, and I'm going to paint over a lot of that smudge. And what's going to happen is when this paint dries, it's like I've got a fresh, clean piece of paper underneath. And it's been very effective over the years doing this, and it's a good trick. So I still like the shape of this flower kind of shape on the right. So I'm trying to bring that forward, but get rid of the dirty smudge. So this, like I say, this is a great trick, painting I wouldn't, at this stage, because the rest of the colors are light, I can use a fluid white. Later on, when I try to do this technique, which I will, there's so much dark paint over top that I have to go with the heavier paste white paint to do the same thing. But as you can see, this is a very effective technique. So much fun. And when I'm doing this, I know I've got to cover certain areas along the page. I'm not trying to contrive anything at this point except mask over some of the smudge. So it's very meditative for me at this stage to just do that. Now I decided I'm getting rid of all of that dirty mess in the middle. Didn't like it. Now don't forget, this isn't going to stay white. I'm just trying to get the page back to white. I can still add all my colors over top. But isn't that great? You can see how you can go in so many directions at this point. It's very gratifying. If I was using watercolor paints, you couldn't do this because you can't mask things as effectively as with acrylic paint. But as you can possibly, if you've already noted, when I use these high flow acrylics and put them down on this book in these spreads, I love that it gives the effect, even though it's acrylic paint, it gives the effect of watercolor. And years and years ago, I used to do a lot of watercolor, so I am very fond of the medium. As I work along, I love exposing circles and dots like that. So whenever I get inspired or I move around the page and I decide, oh, that needs to be a circle, that needs to be a dot, I bring that forward like that. It's a lot of fun. I love finding out what wants to come forward when I've done these first underpaintings. This is so gratifying. I know it might look like a big mess for you, but for me, this is just a stage. I know where I can go from here, and I know it will be successful. So I'm going to use my Nicolazo Gold. I've got the bigger container there and the smaller. The smaller one was high flow acrylic, and it was more transparent. This one's much heavier paste. It's more syrupy. And what I'm trying to do now is do my technique where I do a heavier paint, and I put a dark color, and I'm spreading it around, and then I'm going to do my pattern imprint from the paper towel. And you see me do that a lot in my videos. It gives a wonderful background texture for an underpainting. Again, remember, we're not near the end here. This is just middle stage. And to do these what I'm trying to do is a two-tone print. So what I'm doing now is the darker Nicolazo Gold, and I'm getting, isn't that wonderful? I love that texture. So wherever you see the lighter colors, now I want to add, later on I'm going to do this as a pink stage. And so wherever those lighter areas are in brighter yellow, that might pick up the pink, the magenta later on, and that will give me a two-tone gold and magenta pattern. But you can't do that without doing this first. And sometimes you see me redoing it, but it means that I've pressed too hard, smudged too much of it away, and I want a more obvious pattern. So I'm just reapplying a couple of times and redoing it and not pressing quite as hard. Finding the bumpiest side of the paper towel and using that. That's fun. I love that. I hope you use this technique yourself because it's so much fun. And depending on the paper towel, you could use a different kind of cloth. Depending on what you use, you could use a chamois or some other kind of cloth. You're going to get different patterns. But I'm just trying to show you what you can do with cloth. Now I'm spraying away where I didn't want it with water. But I'm not wiping that back. I'm kind of letting it settle. I want it to just sort of disperse and settle. I've got too much of a smudge there of white, so I'm activating the Nicolazo Gold and letting it flow across that white area. And now I'm bringing out the magenta right out of the bottle, and you can see how intense that pigment is. I perhaps could have started a little lighter, but remember, I'm trying to make a pattern, so you have to use the intense, thicker, pasty paint to do that. Now later on, I'm going to add that magenta in the left side when the left side's dry to get an imprint, and hopefully I'll have a two-tone print. So I'm just activating with more spray water and delicately dabbing away. And gently encouraging it over to the left there because there's so much water there. That pink will spread over there. And because it's already quite watery, as it spreads, it will stay a little lighter. But in that thicker part there, I'm trying to get more imprint. This is not where I'm going to leave it, but it's a start. Let's put some of that, let's have movement of that magenta across the spread, which means I'm going to add some in the top left. I've got a bit of a pattern that may not stay. I'm trying to have it sort of transition into the white by smudging it. Again, all these things I'm doing here are techniques. You could use the same techniques to do abstract landscapes. Absolutely, I use the same techniques. Now I'm pressing a little harder and trying to wipe away some of the edges so I have more transition into what was there before. But experiment on scraps if you like, but experiment with dabbing with the cloth versus rubbing with the cloth versus spreading around with the paintbrush versus spraying with water and letting it flow. These are all tricks I'm trying to show you. So here's my energy flowing around. That's a lot of white making a flow pattern of its own, but I'm not too committed on the white at this point. Remember, I put that white down to cover over the black smudges that were below. That doesn't mean I'm keeping that white. I want to get more, I want to keep some of the pattern where it was, but I want to really bring forward this magenta flower or shape or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just painting it right in. Hopefully some of the pink pattern beyond that is still, the texture of it is still showing up. And who knows if it'll stay, but I'm trying to bring a flow of that magenta around the page. And I like the idea of two-tone magenta. Some of it's right full strength out of the bottle like this, and some of it's that pale pink. Same color, but different values. So I'm just trying to move the flow of it around the page. And there's a circle I'd like to fill in. I know that looks really black, but that's because the reflection's gone from all the water. I don't like how dark that Nicolazo gold is on the left, but that will change because I'm going to add my lighter pink. So right now I'm just moving it around using my finger as a paintbrush because then I can keep it cloudy. If I was going to use a paintbrush, I would paint it on, but I'd still end up dabbing with my fingers. So I thought I'll just use my finger. And I'm lightly dabbing it. Very lightly. Still not sure about that black area down there, but I'll play with it for now. Right now it still makes sense with the entire spread with all the other black energy, but we'll see where we go from there. I want to add more pale pink down to the right. I've got pink going off to the edge of the page on the top left of the spread, so I want pink to go down and off the page to the bottom right. This is actually quite fun. It doesn't stay like this, trust me, but I'm not minding what's happening here. I don't mind spreading some of that pale pink and having it combine with the yellow. It becomes an interesting gold in itself. Because all three colors I'm using here are so complementary. They work very well together, whether they go over top of each other or not. They blend well or they contrast each other well. So I'm kind of slowly working about getting rid of the white, putting this paler pink where the white areas are, seeing if I like that. You never know. But again, I'm trying to spread that around in a delicate way until I know where I want to go from here. I'm still not liking all that black. Some of it makes sense to me and some of it doesn't. It doesn't work for me anymore. But that's what thick white paint's for. I don't mind showing you things that don't look great and what I do to change it. I'm not perfect. I'm experimenting here. And I'm having a lot of fun. Trying to get more of a solid pink in that spot there. And then fanning it over top of that gold because they work well together. It makes a really cloudy, fuzzy, delicate transition. And what I love playing with as well on my abstracts is delicate versus strong and versus pattern. So you're getting a little bit of all of that here. I've got the strong lines from the black, I've got pattern, and I've got these delicate areas, which I call soft places for your eye to land. Those are the spots where you can look and get lost and make your own dreams. Use your imagination, get lost. I always take these books months and years later and I go through them and I look at them and I get a lot of joy out of them. And each time I just take a different journey. And that's the purpose of these art journals for me. I don't do them just to, obviously I use them to just get lost in the moment, but they're a great tool for me later on. I also, especially with these bold ones that are so fun, and they all of these books, as you've noticed, have the same pretty much 5 colors. It's a consistent color range. I love displaying these books fanned open on a shelf, and it gives me a lot of joy. I thought I'd add a little bit of that light pink to give a bit of movement in that shape there, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. In that area there where it's so narrow, I have to delicately dab it with the tip of the brush in the skinny part, and then I can fan it around. This is the mindful part of it. The most mindful part is all these little areas where I'm just moving the paint around, happy in my zone. I want to put a little more pink in the top, just to keep it going off the page and balance. There's so much pink on the bottom right that I want to have a little more in the top left. But we'll see where that goes. It's still, I don't like that black smudgy area there. I don't like that at all. I don't mind things going back in the background, but not that black. It's just looking too dirty. So I thought I'll put a little heavier coat of that pink, but it's not opaque enough. It's not working. And because there's a really thick coat of matte medium below there, it makes it very glossy, which means that the more I spread that, the more it just spreads that pink around and reveals the black underneath. And then I thought I'll spray a little water. So in this middle area here with the texture, now I want to grab that pink there and move some of that over in that other area. And I'll get there shortly. So even though that Nicolazo gold in the middle of the left page looks a little dark and different than the rest of the page, that's just half the stage. I haven't decided about the right side of this. I'm going to call it a flower. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep the right side like that. We'll see what happens. I might have that transition into nothing on the right. So here I want to do the pink. And I want to do the paper towel texture. Now I could have done that with the pale pink and it would have looked lovely, but I ended up doing a little bit darker with the magenta and the fluid white. And I kind of wish I would have kept it a little lighter. It went a little, it's kind of a medium pink, and when I put that on top of the Nicolazo Gold, it ends up kind of a dark area. But that's what happens. It's not bad. I guess what I was trying to do is transition the darker pink with the light pink with this medium pink in the middle of the page, and nothing wrong with that. And I didn't want to cover up too much of that stamp with the script because I like that. But I shouldn't have worried about it too much because you can always stamp over again later. But I guess what I like is that I like that the stamp was already in the background slightly. So I'm trying to keep some of that in some of the areas around the page. Now I'm going to do the press to get the pattern and see what happens. So now I've got a bit of pink and the Nicolazo Gold. And I'm using a spray of water to help it delicately flow and become misty. It's kind of hard to paint misty, so I use the water to help it spread that way and settle. I'm still not loving what's happening, but remember, this is just the middle stage. I do like that flow. I'm going to keep that flow. Don't like that black smudge in the bottom there, but I'm going to let that dry for now. Before it dried completely, I dabbed a little bit more of that pink in places. And the reason why I did that now before it completely dried is because it helps to, it kind of flows and transitions into the rest of it as it's drying. I'm putting more pink in the top left, but I'm going to regret that. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm balancing the top left with the bottom right. So it made sense at the time. So this is all about experimenting and playing, and it is improving. I'm getting rid of a lot of the black and the things that I don't want, and I'm just applying and smudging and moving along. Again, this is all about mindfulness and playing, so try not to be hard on myself. And then I decided I didn't like that. I didn't like that the pattern didn't show up the way I wanted. And that's okay, it was still wet. There's a lot of matte medium on the page, so that none of that absorbed into the paper, the actual paper of the book. So I was able to spray water and wipe it all back before it dried. I want to keep those 3 dots just in case. And I like those pink dots that of paint that splashed on the left there of where I am. I'm trying to make pattern on the area, but not smudge. That's a little bit better. I like that those pink, the textured dot squares there are showing up a little bit better. I'm just delicately doing it in that corner there because I quite like those 1, 2, 3, 4 pink dots that kind of splash there when I put the paint down. What I want to do in the top left is use the spray bottle. That's why I've got the paper towels there. So when I tilt the page and spray, at the top part there I wanted it to transition, and in the very corner of the page I want that to flow away. So I do like this. I didn't want that pink line there. I love that transition now from pattern to gold to yellow. I like that flow now. I think there's too much weight of pink in the top left there, so I'm probably going to dab that away. But before I do that, I'm putting a little more pink down here. It's not hiding because it's so transparent. It's definitely not covering over that script, which I like. I want to keep that script throughout this spread. It helps balance the bottom of that page. But I'm not liking the top left. I'm dabbing where the pink is starting to pool off to the corner there. Now it dried. I let it dry, and I'll deal with that. I can always paint white over that and deal with it. But right now, what I want to show you is those black areas. I don't like them. Now, as dramatic as this seems, it's the only way I'm trying to get back the look of the paper. So I'm just taking full strength heavy paste white paint, and I'm dabbing it and smudging it around. The reason why I'm smudging it is because if I just paint it down, when it dries and I put these colors over top, you're going to see those edges of the paint strokes. And I don't want that. I want this to be very organic. But I need this opaque white. Again, I'm bringing it back to the look of the paper. And I've decided, even though I'm still going to have a flow as I did, meandering from left to right, and I like that bit of black dot, that smudge on the top, at the very center of the page. I don't mind keeping that because I like that it kind of brings the eye up there. But it's not a line, it's just a little dot right there. And again, I'm spraying water along the edges and dabbing it a bit so that it makes it more of a cloudy transition. Again, once that paste dries, it's going to be a different texture than the original paper when I add color over it. And before it dries, because it was a thick white, I could take something and scrape like that and make little lines. They may or may not show up later, but that's the only time you can do it. And what I'm doing is creating a bit of a pattern there. I didn't want that black there, so I got rid of it as well. And now I'm just dabbing lightly and smudging for transition. So we've got a dramatic transformation on the spread now, don't we? Dramatic, completely different from what we started with. But you've got to always remember with abstracts, all my abstracts, even the ones that I do on canvas that go on the wall, they always have about 12 different layers, and they're completely different layers. And every time I do a layer, I cover up and mask some of what's below, but I always reveal some of it. And that's the magic of these abstracts with this technique, is when you accumulate all those 12 areas with little bits revealed here and there, it ends up being magical, and you can't paint those details later. It's just impossible to paint them. They have to be revealed. Now this white is dry. I'm pretending it's just a plain page again, and I'm just stamping again like I did from way back when it was a white page, because I do like that script. And I know that some of that will be subdued because I'm going to still put color down on top of this white, but I just wanted to bring back the pattern. And remember, the script is also a pattern. I love having the background being a pattern instead of just a color, solid color. It provides a lot more interest, more depth, more layers. This is fun. So I'm already liking where this has gone, liking it a lot. So to start the first stage of covering up this, pretending it's a white page again, remember at the beginning I started with the yellow. I'm just moving that around to give balance. Now I'm getting the Nickel Gold as the middle color. Remember, I did this order before. Quite happy with where this is going, I have to tell you. I've saved the day. Really happy. Decided in those two balls there to do a little bit of depth and have a bit of transition of yellow to gold, and just dabbing it so that it's not all solidly filled in. And while I've got that color on my finger, I just move that around. And now I'm adding more gold. Again, I'm trying to balance the gold around the page and the transition from yellow to gold to magenta. So I'm really happy with what this is turning into. I need some yellow down there again. First stage of covering up the page. A little bit of the gold. as it gets closer to the magenta. Again, I'm making a mixture of magenta full strength and fluid white to get that mid-tone magenta. Look at how that changes once it goes over that paint. You see what I mean by that white paint being a different texture? It picks up the paint in a different way, and that's okay. And I'm trying to do a transition from that flower shape so that the right side of it doesn't have a real black line. It just sort of disappears and melds into the page. And I'm adding more water so that I can sort of transition these colors. So look at that transformation. Much different. I like that this gentler, it's less dirty. I like that that flower shape is strong on part of it and then disappearing. As I wrote there, you could take a Posca pen, and a lot of art journal artists on YouTube do that, and they do wonderful things. You could go nuts at this point right here. You could go nuts once it's dry with Posca pens and do squares, shapes, dots, anything you want over it. So this is the thing I do when I'm near the end. I stick it at the far end of the room and I observe it from a distance. And I usually do this the next day, and that tells me where I see the energy, what's needed, and I could see that I need to do something right there. But unfortunately, I forgot to record the next part. I put it up in place, and I recorded visually. I put it up in place, but I didn't hit record. So what I did, and what you missed, is I added more white and got rid of all that pink in the top left that I didn't like. I dabbed it around and smudged it. And then I added a stamp and put some dots there just to bring that black line down to the bottom and off the page. And then I got these, I put some bright yellow up in the top. And then I did the Nicolazzo gold, again, the same order of colors. And then I got two stamp pads out. One was a darker red and one was a pink. And I used a dragonfly stamp. So I started with where the darkest area of the spread is. I did the darker color. I just did that again on top of the old one to show you, and I didn't quite register properly, but that's okay. So I did two dragonflies with the red, and then I wiped it off with wet wipe and did the pink. So it transitions from red to pink, that dragonfly. Now I like it more. It kind of made sense to do something like that without anything too obvious. I find the dragonflies are nice and gentle and delicate, and just a hint of it. I decided it was a little too pale in the very middle at the bottom and the top in the middle. So I thought I would bring a little more intensity of color. So I did that with the Indian yellow. And over there, it's hard to tell, but there were little bits of exposed white. So all I'm doing is dabbing and smudging that around over the white. So here we go, people. This is it, final project. Completely different from the underpainting, but that's how these go. I like it a lot. I hope you do. Comment below whatever you think, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.